Welcome to Claim Your Confidence, a podcast that will introduce you to the most powerful people in the world. No matter what obstacles you face, Claim Your Confidence will inspire and motivate you to go after the life you want. Are you ready to claim your confidence?
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Season 2 of Claim Your Confidence. I'm Lydia Fenet, coming to you from Newsstand Studios in Rockefeller Plaza on a cold, blustery February day. It's hard to believe that we're back here again, and I know that I've teased this out a little bit over the course of the past couple of weeks, but you probably are wondering why there's a guy sitting in front of me today. Season 1 was all about Claim Your Confidence, exploring the confidence journeys of a lot of amazing women at the top of their careers. But as I said in one of my last podcasts, I don't believe that women have the corner on confidence. And I am so delighted to introduce star hockey goalie and a friend, Henrik Lundqvist, to Claim Your Confidence. Henrik, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's so exciting to have you here. I have to say, when we started talking in Rock Center about the possibility of doing this with guys and women over the course of the Season 2, you were the first person who came to mind. So I appreciate you showing up in a big way.
Thank you.
So for those of you who are not familiar with Henrik's career, I want to tell you a little bit more about the superstar who's sitting across from me. He was the New York Rangers lead goalie, playing for 15 seasons in the goal at Madison Square Garden. He's the only goaltender in NHL history to record 11 30-win seasons in his first 12 seasons. He was recently inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2023, and he also has an Olympic gold medal. So just a couple of things. As I said before I walked in here, I was doing research last night, and the list of accolades and awards was so long that it was almost embarrassing. I had to keep scrolling to get to the bottom. But I really appreciate you being here, and I want to dive right in because this entire podcast is about confidence. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about who you were when you were little. Who was Henrik Lundqvist? You grew up in Sweden.
Yeah. Small ski town up north in Sweden called Are. And I grew up with a twin brother, identical twin brother, an older sister. And growing up, it was all about sports. You know, it was about competing, try to win. Didn't matter if it was skiing or soccer, hockey, obviously. But competition was a huge part of my childhood. And I loved competing. And pretty normal household, two parents working hard. And for the kids, again, it was all about sports. And I feel like we supported each other really well and inspired each other a lot to work harder and try to get better.
Was hockey something that was evident? I imagine growing up in Sweden to look a little bit like the set of Frozen. Am I correct in thinking that's just ice everywhere all the time? I remember Therese, Henrik's wife, once telling me that they used to skate to school. Is this correct, or was that something she made up?
I don't know if we skated to school, but we had one of those, I don't even know what you call it in English. We call it a kick in Swedish. And it's kind of like a chair on blades. So you can sit on it or you stand up and you kick. You have to search this word up.
Yeah, right after the podcast.
Right after the podcast. But we used that. I never skated to school, but listen, it was obviously a lot of snow, and wintertime it's pretty dark.
Yeah.
And then you have the 180, obviously. Summertime, it's very bright. The sun sets around midnight. But during the winter, it's dark, and I feel like that affects people in a way where maybe they're a little more reserved and talk a little less. But yeah, that's how we grew up. And then we moved down south when I was 11 to explore sports more. My sister played tennis.
Yeah, I read that you moved, which is so ironic, that you moved for your sister's tennis more than your hockey. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we spent summers down there on vacations. We knew about the place, and it was just a new challenge. And a new opportunity, I should say, for the family and for the kids, for me, my brother, and my sister, to do sports at a higher level and also focus on the things we loved.
And were you the more confident twin? I have a couple of friends who are twins, and I feel like there's always one who's like a little more dominant than the other.
Well, I'm the oldest. Okay. I'm 40 minutes older.
I feel like that's always a thing when you're a twin, too, by the way.
So for me, yeah, maybe I was the one making more decisions. But for the most part, we were on the same page almost all the time. We went to class together. We played on the same team. So growing up, we spent pretty much every day together. And yeah, we agreed on most things, which is kind of having your best friend with you all the time.
Yeah.
It becomes a very nice, supporting feeling, when you have someone that thinks alike and supports you, but also at the same time challenge you.
Did you find that in hockey as a young kid? Like when you guys started playing together, was it always competitive and were you always the goalie?
I would say it was always competitive. We get really upset when we were losing already at age 5. It was so important.
Just winning at all costs at a very early age.
Yes. But was I goalie? Yeah, I would say I was goalie pretty much at the first practice. It was something about that role, the importance. I think the equipment was exciting.
Really? In what way?
Yeah, I just remember watching hockey on TV, and I saw the big pads and the helmets, and I was also a goalie in soccer. So there was something about that position where, yes, you play a team sport, but it's also individual in a way where you're very focused on your own performance. And in the end, it comes down to making quick decisions. As a kid, you didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But as I got older, I realized it's about making quick decisions under pressure, more than being a physical sport.
Yeah. I have so many friends who listen to this podcast who all think that their children are going to play Division I sports somewhere. So tell me what we're looking for in those very young athletes. Like, what did you have at an early age? And your brother, too, because you guys were playing side by side or in the same league. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. We played, we turned pro at the same time in Sweden, played together there for 4 or 5 years. We won a couple of championships in Sweden. We also won the World Championships together for Sweden back in 2017. So yes. I think if I have to point to one thing that helped us, it's the love for the sport and the passion. I keep telling kids that, you can work really hard, but in the end, it's the passion for what you do that's going to help you, because it's never a straight line. It doesn't matter if you're the top or you're starting at the bottom. That passion for what you do is going to help you overcome the different hurdles along the way, because there's many of them.
Yeah.
Even when you feel like you make it, there's so many hurdles. So that passion really helped me. I love going to practice. I loved competing against teammates in practice, and obviously playing games, because everybody works hard now. Everybody wants to make it, but I think it's that if you have enough passion for it, making sacrifices is never hard.
Yeah.
Because you love it so much.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's very true. And I think that plays forward over the course of a long career too, because ultimately that's a lot of what happens over the course of, a 2 decades long career, I'm sure. So where did you start? So you were in Sweden and you played there for a long time. When did you have sort of your breakout moment?
Good question.
Or was it just a series of just dominating the sport in general?
Well, at 16, I made the junior national team. So I played for Sweden internationally for under 18 and then under 20. I get drafted when I was 18, back in 2000. Get drafted by the Rangers.
You got drafted when you were 18?
18. So that's the year when NHL, or hockey players, I should say, you're allowed to be drafted. It doesn't mean you're going to make it to the NHL the next year.
Yeah.
But they own the rights. So that's what happened back in 2000. The Rangers picked me in the draft, and then I choose to stay in Sweden for another 4.5 years.
But you always knew you were going to the Rangers. Is that something that you always look towards? Like when you're playing in Sweden, is it always coming to the U.S. to play in the NHL? Was the Rangers always the team you wanted to play for?
My first dream was to play for my country. Oh. I grew up watching the national team play, and watched Team Sweden play at World Championships and the Olympics. That's how my dream started. I want to play hockey one day professionally, but number one, I want to play for my country. Yeah. And over time, we're talking late 80s now and then early 90s, you start to pay more and more attention to the NHL. But number one, play for my country. Number two was to play for Frölunda, which was a team in Gothenburg. It's on the west coast in Sweden. That was our favorite team growing up. I was a huge fan of the team.
And your dad was somehow involved, right?
Well,
I read that.
He took us there.
He took us to the games.
He took us to a game when we were 5 years old, and I watched a real hockey game for the first time. And that's when I started to really, okay, wow, this is a cool sport.
You're like, no more pond. No more playing on the pond with my brother.
Well, growing up in a ski town, everybody skied, right?
Interesting, yeah.
So for us to choose hockey was not the natural choice.
Yeah.
But for us, it was hockey. And I think that game was very important in making that decision because it was so inspiring to watch it. And then at 16, I moved there with my brother, moved away from home, and we went to high school and played for Frölunda. Turned pro a couple of years later, played for the pro team there for 5 years. And you asked earlier about if there was a moment. I think there's different things that happened that was extremely important at the time. Mm-hmm. You know, that move to Gothenburg, start playing for Frölunda, then getting drafted at 18, and then playing junior national team, yes, and then winning a couple of championships in Sweden. Everything that happened was another milestone and another level that you wanted to reach. Mm-hmm. And then back in 2005, my last year in Sweden, we ended up winning the championship, and I had one of my best years, I think, throughout my career. I was ready for that next step, which was moving to New York.
And so you're at the top of your career. I mean, you've won this huge championship, and you're embarking on a completely new journey. So you're coming out of this, I'm sure, feeling great about yourself, but you're about to come into New York City with people who maybe are not as friendly, I assume, in the arena. So how did you feel in that moment? Were you nervous? Were you excited? Was it kind of a combination of both?
There were so many things going through my head.
Yeah.
You know, this was something I've been dreaming of for so many years. Yeah. You know, to get an opportunity to play in the NHL, moving to New York was both exciting and scary at the same time. Yeah. And also you leave friends, family overseas in Sweden. And so there was a lot of emotions. But I was very focused on, you know, what was ahead of me. And that was to make the team and to, you know, start a new life in a way. You know, you move so far away and to a completely different place like New York City.
Your brother didn't come. Your brother stayed in Sweden.
He stayed in Sweden for another year, and then he moved to Dallas for a couple of years, played for the Dallas Stars there.
It's kind of an amazing story that both of you are sort of like circling the NHL from Sweden. But it must be fun to have been able to compare that as well with him in a way. Not that you were having apples to apples experiences.
It was definitely weird those first few months. It was the first time in my life I spent more than 2 days apart from my twin brother, moving to New York, and he was back there, and it was a new experience for sure. But again, that support that you felt from family and especially your brother definitely helped me growing up, but also throughout my career.
So talk to me about the first day at Madison Square Garden. The goalie goes in, you're sitting on the bench, right?
So my first, let's see here now. I played my first NHL game on the road, and then my first NHL game at the Garden was a few games in. The starter was hurt, so I get this opportunity to play. And yeah, I just ran with it. You know, I had a good start and won a few games early on, built some confidence. And it's not all about, you know, proving to yourself. It's also proving to your teammates, to your coach, that you should be out there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because they didn't really care that, you know, I was ranked the best goalie in Sweden for the past 3 years and won a couple of championships. It doesn't matter. You come here, you start from scratch.
Yeah, you're only as good as your last game, right?
Exactly.
Isn't that the way it is?
You kind of start over, and you have to prove to everyone that you deserve this opportunity, and you try to make the most of it.
What does it feel like when you are in a place, you're sort of at the peak of your career, and the goalie who's in the goal injures himself? Are you so excited to get in that goal? Or are you like, oh my God, what is about to happen? I mean, what do you, like, I can't even imagine. Were you at MSG when that happened? Or were you on the road?
Well, I think that Kevin Weeks, who was the starter, it was more of a practice day. So it was not a big surprise when you get the call to play the next game. But Hockey's a team sport. We talked earlier about being a goalie is more individual. There's only one spot.
Yeah.
You're in or you're out.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
But at the same time, you try to support each other because in the long run, it just feels a lot better to have a great relationship with the other goalie, and also for the team to have two goalies playing great is a huge advantage, obviously. But when you do get the opportunity, you just have to worry about your own game and what you need to do to take that opportunity.
It's so interesting in the game of hockey because it seems like there are 5 people who are sort of swirling around the court, and then you're the goalie, and it really has to get through 5 people. But ultimately, if something goes wrong, and I say this, I never knew anything about hockey before I met you, as you know, and I'd like to say I know that much more, but I'll be honest, I'm still not even sure that I'm that well versed in hockey. But I do remember going to the games and watching, there's so much activity, and then it's like it all comes down to the goalie, and they're just firing pucks at you one after another from different angles. What are you thinking in those moments? Is it like a Matrix style situation? Because I definitely have seen videos where you're like batting things with your leg.
Yeah.
What does it look like from your perspective? And are you like, oh my God, or are you excited when someone's coming down
I find it easier when you're out there and you're in it, the way you see the puck, the way you track the puck, versus you're up in the stands watching it. Sometimes it's just chaos out there, and that's a big part of the game too. There's a lot of players in front of the net try to screen and deflect pucks, and so you're working through chaos, a lot of times. But when you're out there and your focus is great, it felt a lot easier to manage that and to be in the right place. But I do remember watching games from the side, and it's like, can I really do that? It looks hard.
You're like, I just want to be sure that I can be on that and do that exact job.
Because it's such a big part of being a goaltender is your focus.
Yeah.
So if your focus is not in the right place, it's extremely hard to play well.
Yeah.
And especially being consistent.
Well, I imagine too, because you have so many other things going on over the course of a day, and you go to the Garden at night to do this. If you have an off day, like, what are you doing mentally to get yourself into a place where you're like, I need to focus, I need to be here, I need to be present?
Well, I was very consistent with my preparation.
Superstitious?
That
consistent?
too.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that.
But preparation was a huge part of my career. How I trained, obviously, but also mentally how I prepared for every game. So it was a process. It was not like you showed up at 5 at Madison Square Garden, played the game at 7.
Yeah.
You start thinking about the game sometimes the night before, but definitely in the morning. You have the morning skate. You go home, you rest before the game. You think about what you need to do. You touched on it, to be present. In the end, that's what you want to be, right?
Yeah.
Just to be in the moment, because then your reaction is it's your instinct that takes over.
It's that years of practice.
Yeah.
It's almost like a second
just
skin.
takes over.
Yeah.
And I think that is the biggest challenge for a lot of athletes, to stay present in the moment. But when you're there, it's such a great feeling. You just play and you feel so confident, and you have this belief in yourself and your game.
I always say to people when I get on stage as an auctioneer, and to people I'm training in public speaking, the audience wants you to succeed. You get out there, and the audience, they don't want a bad public speaker. They're not looking for someone who's a bad auctioneer. On the flip side, there's a professional athlete. Not only do you have your own fans who can easily turn against you, which I've seen in LSU and football in Louisiana many times, where all of a sudden everyone in the stands is booing their own players, which is hilarious to watch. Probably not for you. But then on the flip side, you also you go to an opposing game, and all of a sudden the entire arena is yelling at you. Like, they don't want you to get it. So what do you do to mentally steel yourself? I'm just trying to think about, like, as I prepare my children for life, should they want to be a goalie or something that takes that kind of mental preparedness? Henry, Beatrice, or Eloise, they want to do it. What am I teaching them, Henry? Give me some skills.
I think you have to love being there.
Yeah.
Love pressure, love the importance of the situation. And you talk about having 18,000 screaming at you, and all they want is for you to mess up.
Yeah. Literally. That's all they want is for you to miss that goal. That's all they want. Yeah.
So the confidence you have in yourself is so important going out to games, both at home, because you feel the pressure at home as well, but definitely on the road. So again, that preparation and believe in yourself is so important on the road, but it's also a great challenge to have to try to have a quiet building on the road, because if you do play well, if you win that game, it's usually pretty quiet.
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
a great feeling, playing on the road.
Yeah, I bet that's got to be such an incredible thing. And then you get to come home and people chant your name unless things go wrong, and then they boo at you.
But the confidence, I think a lot of times you just have to keep telling yourself the right things, even when you're not feeling confident.
Yeah.
Because, you want great people around you to support you, and you have your family, friends, teammates. But in the end, it's what you keep telling yourself that's going to make the biggest difference.
Yeah.
And, when things go great, there's so many people that tell you how good you are, how things are so nice, and, but it's when things are not going great, what are you telling yourself?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest lesson for me throughout my career. Just keep telling myself the right things. And now not playing the game, everything feels so nice.
Yeah.
You go to work and then there's nobody
no one's
yelling.
Like, you suck,
No. Everybody's just friendly.
And you're like, this is so strange.
Yeah.
So I get asked this question a lot as a working mom who travels a lot. And I know from being around you guys for a long time, like your schedule when you were on was relentless. You were on a plane nonstop going back and forth. You guys got married around the same time we did, like sort of 2011, 2012, and had 2 children. What does that take as a toll on you as a goalie coming home to that? You're King Henrik, which, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is literally what people call Henrik. And I saw this firsthand one of the times we went to the game, and we got out and a taxi driver literally pulled up to Henrik and screamed, "I'll take you anywhere you want to go, King." I'd never been to a hockey game. I'm like, who are they talking to? And his wife was like, "They're talking to Henrik." I was like, I think he might actually be a really big hockey player, guys.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes wonder, because I get this question all the time as a mom, as someone who's like literally traveling all the time, about what it takes for that reentry. And I credit my husband, Chris, for being an incredible partner and such a good, unbelievable dad to our kids. But I know that Therese has been that person for you. But tell me, what does it feel like for you when you were King Henrik and then you go home and you're like, diaper changing time?
No, but it's a great reset of, what you do at work, and then you come home and it's just normal life.
Yeah.
And the importance of having a great team around you.
Yeah.
Your partner, always talk about having great friends around you, but definitely, my wife, the importance of keeping it together at home with the kids.
Yeah, totally.
And you need that support system.
Yeah.
Especially when, I was so dedicated to my process of the preparations and the games. Even when we had home games, I was not really there because I prepared for games.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of time
Yeah.
spent on hockey, and talked earlier about the passion towards the game. It was so important to me. And flip side, summers were great, a lot of off time. But when you're in it, training camp starts in September and you go until May, June, depending on how long you play in the playoffs. But it's a big commitment.
Yeah.
So that definitely that support system you have around you was crucial.
Yeah.
But coming home, it was nice.
Yeah.
To not think about the game.
Yeah.
And I felt like when things are going great, it was very easy not to think about the game.
Yeah.
You enjoyed life. You were in the moment. You spent time with friends, family. But when things were not going great, that was the tough part for me, to get away from it, because you overanalyzed it. You thought about it constantly, and it affected a little bit, my off days.
Yeah, because you're in your own head, right?
Exactly.
You're just like thinking, and even if you're there with everyone, it's still like the mental thing doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the kids, they don't care.
Yeah,
if
the
you
kids
lost.
don't care. Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like they could care less if we lost or won, or they just wanted time with me and whatever that meant, in terms of helping out at home or. But it was refreshing in a way.
Yeah, to have that work-life balance, which is nice. And it's something I think, especially post-COVID, people have so much more of, which is good. But I'm sure for you on the other side of that as well, that piece just being in play always is such a nice place to have built over the course of your life. Mm-hmm. So you obviously played for 15 years for the Rangers. And this was a question I always wanted to ask you. age is not something that we can change. We all age. And as a professional sports player, you've got to know that at some point you're not going to be able to play anymore. But I'm sure that seems something that's like very far off and distant always. What does it get to be like when you are in a place where you know you're kind of circling the end of your career? How do you choose how to end it? How much is your choice, and how much do you wish that in every single instance that you could change things on a daily basis?
Well, of course, you're aware that as you get older, you get closer to the end as an athlete.
Yeah.
You can't get around that. It's very few that can end exactly the way they want.
Yeah.
Because of competition, because of health. There's so many things that comes into play in how your career will end.
Yeah, of course.
But in your head, you have a picture. You have like a plan of how it should end, or how you want it to end, right? For me, it didn't play out at all the way I thought it would.
Yeah.
You know, after 15 years in New York, my time ended here. And it was time for the Rangers to move forward, rebuilding younger players, and decide to play a couple more years in Washington. That was the goal. That was the goal then. It shifted. It was a lot going. My thoughts that summer was it was intense. Am I done? Should I continue?
Yeah.
And decided to go to Washington, and because I love the game so much.
Yeah. Yeah. But when you're at the place where you have the younger players coming in and you still have to put on the goalie pads and go back to this place that you've been going for 15 years, I mean, you talk about mental fortitude and confidence. Like, did you ever think about just calling in sick? You're like, I won't be there today, guys.
No.
I have a bit of a throat cold. No, because you said that it's all about the team, and you said that many times.
and I still love practicing, and of course, the joy you feel towards it changes over time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need a reset.
Yeah.
I remember that fall of a new challenge, a new team. I didn't see that coming at all. That was not in my cards. But I remember the joy towards the sport and being on the ice and competing was extremely high.
Yeah. Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of why I started playing the game 30 years earlier.
Yeah.
Just coming to the rink and challenge myself that way was something that was such a big part of my life for so long.
Yeah. Then, as we know, there was a bit of a curveball that came in.
Yeah, a couple of curveballs, right?
Yeah. And it's funny. So in my first book, "And the Most Powerful Woman in the Room Is You," I asked women to do case studies. And there's a quote by Martha Stewart that I say it so often because I think of it, and I think of it in your case too, that success seldom comes in the form that we think it will. And for you, for those people who didn't know, you were leaving, you were bought out of your contract for the Rangers, you were going to the Capitals. And I remember you guys going down there, and there were like pictures from Washington coming in of the girls like doing cartwheels, and it all seemed so great. And then what happened?
Well, I had a heart condition that I knew at some point I have to deal with, but everything just went really fast over those couple months that fall between October, November, December. It went from it's under control to now you're going to have to go in for an open heart surgery and fix a valve and replace a piece of my aorta.
What is that even, what is getting that news feel? I mean, you must have felt like you were in a parallel universe. You're like, this is not my life.
Yeah, I was a little shocked, to be honest.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we had all those meetings leading up to the decision of, okay, you're not going to play hockey. You're going to go in for an open heart surgery instead. So I knew there was a chance of that happening, but in my head, again, back to the plan.
Yeah.
In my head, no. I'm going to play hockey. Yeah. I love this sport so much. I'm not ready to walk away from it. But I was in a very good place mentally because that year I worked really hard on finding happiness in so many things. Mm-hmm. Hockey, yes, but also in life.
Yeah.
So I was very calm, and to me it was just another, I say just another, but it felt like, okay, this is a game now. I need to go do this, and I'm going to come back.
Yeah. Do you feel, and I can say this having, as you know, because of our car accident, I feel like I came through all of that with such a renewed sense of life and such a sense of purpose for living. I don't know if you felt like that after your surgery. Like, did you ever think about that on the flip side? Like, this almost feels like you've been granted a second life. I mean, you have a new heart valve. Like, I mean, do you ever think about it like that? Or was it more just you'd mentally been preparing?
To me, it was just strange how for, let's see, 6-8 months, I was working mentally to find a lot of happiness in my life. Mm-hmm. But in a way, when looking back at it, it was almost like that process prepared me for what was coming.
Yeah. You just didn't know what you were preparing for.
I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
So then when I got the news, and again, I was just in a very good place, very grateful for so many things and calm. And I remember the surgeon said at one point, he rarely see patients going in for an open heart surgery being that calm. Yeah. But I think that process of 6 to 8 months of working mentally on, my mindset really helped. No question about it.
So on the flip side of that, you come out of this and now you're left with a blank slate for your career. I mean, effectively, the thing that you have been doing since you were a child is no longer an option. Where do you start to create the next chapter of your life?
Well, it was not completely over. I still try to come back, but I had a complication a few months after surgery. I had pericarditis, which is inflammation around the heart, and that eventually led me to retiring. And when that date arrived, I was in peace with it. Again, not part of my plan or how I saw it a couple of years earlier, but if that was 10 years earlier, it would have been extremely hard.
Yeah.
But I was extremely grateful for the 15 years I played in New York, for the 5 years I played professional in Sweden and playing for my country. And did I want more? Yeah, I wanted to play a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I found so much gratitude towards everything I experienced, teammates, memories, relationships I created over the years, that I was in peace to move forward and let go of the game of hockey.
It's interesting because going back to kind of that quote about success seldom comes in the form that you think it will. Ultimately, you never played for the Capitals and you went back to MSG as an ambassador. And I, unfortunately, as we talk about sacrifice, was not able to come to the ceremony because I had an auction that weekend. But I saw the videos of this unbelievable moment for you. Can you talk about what it was like to go back into the arena where you'd played for 15 years with your family, with people chanting your name over and over again? What did that feel like for you?
Well, obviously, to have your number retired at Madison Square Garden is incredible feeling.
Yeah.
It's not something you think about when you play, because you do think about the next game, next season, what you want to accomplish. You don't think about how it's going to end.
Yeah.
But to be standing there with my family and friends and to have that moment with the fans is something I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And it was very special. It was hard to put into words. That whole week was intense. There was so many things going on, but I have so many, strong feelings towards the Rangers organization, how they helped me and gave me an opportunity for so long. And now you said I'm working as an ambassador at Madison Square Garden. And I love it. I love the people, I love the organization. I think it's the best building in the world because you have the Knicks, you have basketball,
Madonna.
You have hockey, Madonna, you have concerts every other night. There's so much going on. And I always loved entertainment. I love sports and entertainment and media. And it's just, there's no better place for it.
It's been amazing to watch this second chapter for you because it feels like you're almost like a phoenix coming out of the ashes. There's so many projects for you, and there's almost like no limit to what you're going to do. It's like Henrik's playing a guitar one night, like Henrik's sipping a Moscow Mule another night, like Henrik at MSG. There's so many different things that you're focusing on. I know philanthropy has always been important to you. Will you tell me a little bit about the Henrik Lundqvist Foundation?
Yeah, so we started that 10 years ago. And coming to New York from Sweden as a 23-year-old, I've been to small events in Sweden, but it's not a huge part of the society in Sweden to give back. So it was just an eye-opening experience to work with Madison Square Garden, with Garden of Dreams, which is their foundation. And I became the spokesperson for Garden of Dreams Foundation for many years. And then after a few years, I wanted to create my own, with my wife, Therese, and talk about, an opportunity to reflect where you are and how lucky you are to get to play a sport for a living, something you dreamed of doing for so long. But to use that platform to try to do good things. So we work with Presbyterian Children's Hospital and Food Bank of New York. We work with Ronald McDonald House back in Sweden. And we also have our own Young Ambassador program where we inspire young kids to give back in their community.
It's so amazing.
And it's very rewarding. It really is, to see the impact. And hockey can be intense. Sport can be intense. Yeah. Expectations. And this is something completely different, and to be able to use your name or resources or connections to do something like that, it's a great feeling.
So what can we expect in 2024 through in perpetuity? What comes next for you? I know there is a Cologne.
Yeah.
So many things.
Yeah, we released next chapter in September of 23. So a fragrance I worked on for over a year with a Swedish company called Morgan Madison. And, for years I thought about this, but it was never a good time. And then when I retired, I started talking to this company, and we just viewed it the same way. We want to create a niche fragrance, and we also have, Orrefors, which is a Swedish glassmaker, designed the bottle. So all the little pieces came together nicely, I think. So that's part of, some of the time I spend working these days, but a lot of time goes to, Madison Square Garden. I work TV, go to concerts and games, work in Atlanta a few times every month at TNT for hockey, NHL. But in the end, to me, it's about having fun now.
Yeah.
And enjoy my time. And the biggest difference when you retire is you're in charge of your own time.
Yeah. That must be an incredible thing to not have to be at a rink super early all day, every single day, and then on stage at night too, in many ways.
Yeah. I mean, to pick and choose when you work, how much you work, what you do, who you surround yourself with, it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
And hockey was everything to me for such a long time, but I do feel like I want to create something new. I want new experiences, meet new people, and continue to grow, and also challenge myself a little bit.
So, dream scenario, what is one thing that you would say out loud that kind of scares you that you might want to try? Just say it, whatever it is.
I have to say that there's not many things that scares me in terms of a challenge.
Yeah.
Well, I can't sing. I wish I could sing. I do play the guitar once in a while. So if I could sing, if someone told me you have to go up on stage and sing a song, that would be frightening. Yes.
Well, maybe that's the challenge for 2024, 2025.
I think we should spare everyone. That should not be happening. But no, I'm in a great place right now, and I'm just enjoying my time. And you also realize when you play a team sport, you have a great group of people around you every day.
Yeah.
And now when you're out of this, the hockey community, I'm trying to create, my team around me.
Yeah.
That you're having fun with and that keep challenging you.
Yeah. For all the parents out there who have little hockey players that are just dying to be the next Henrik Lundqvist, what is one piece of advice that you would give to parents? And this could be for any sport. As someone who's played a professional sport and seems to have come out on the other side unscathed, unlike a lot of other athletes that I've seen. Like your parents did, and I've met your parents, but like your parents clearly did something right about the way that they approached sports with you. And obviously you were very motivated to do it. But is there anything that you see that you would say to parents out there who are watching their kids excel in sports and want them to keep doing that?
Well, we talked early on the show here about the passion for what you do.
Yeah.
There needs to be a lot of joy in it. And sometimes you have to remind yourself why you started.
Yeah.
I did that even when I played at Madison Square Garden. Yeah. And sometimes the pressure gets to you or expectations. So you have to remind yourself here and there that the reason why I play this is because I enjoy it so much. And having that fun, positive feeling inside you kind of brings you back to that feeling you had when you first started.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it gets away from you a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that passion and joy I felt for this sport, that I tried to keep coming back to that. And it always helped me when things were not going great or, so...
Passion and joy.
Passion and joy.
That's
and
it.
you
There
can
you go.
have your parents or siblings push you and support you. But in the end, it's going to come down to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you find the joy
Yeah.
in this? Because then you will be ready to make the sacrifices to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think once you find something that you're truly passionate about, there's an endless well of energy
Yes.
and desire to continue doing that. Well, Henrik, this has been such a pleasure. I can't thank you enough for stopping by Newsstand Studios today.
Well, thank you.
Where can we find you and follow along?
Well, you definitely will see me at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
I'm there for games and sometimes I'm on MSG Networks and TNT Networks.
And your Instagram is?
Instagram is H Lundqvist Official.
There's a lot of good clothing, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to need to watch Henrik's outfits. They rival most women's accounts, if I'm honest.
And then we have the Club 30. We started the podcast last year through MSG.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your guests. And I think you said you were about to roll into season 3 or thinking about that.
Yeah. You know what? We started with a close friend of mine, Jay Liddell, and we just have an opportunity to sit down with people that we find interesting or they inspire us. We've had athletes, business people, and they all have a great story to tell.
Yeah.
Whether it's Alex Rodriguez or Lindsey Vonn or John McEnroe or Eli Manning.
So like people we've never heard of before, I guess. Those are on Club 30, you will not find anyone who you've ever heard of before, I think is what Henrik's saying.
And listen, we talked about this before we start recording today, that the best part about having a podcast is you really get to know people.
Yeah, it's very true.
I never saw myself host a podcast, but now I'm doing it, and the biggest thing I take away from it is the opportunity to really get to know people, and I love that.
Yeah. Well, again, Henrik, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for stopping by. And I want to leave our listeners with one thought. As you think about 2024, what are you finding passion and joy in? Feel free to DM me. You can DM Henrik after the episode comes out. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Lydia Fenet. This is Claim Your Confidence in Newsstand Studios in Rockefeller Plaza. Thank you to Joe, without whom nothing would happen, as he knows. And thanks to my mom for always starting us off with a bang. Season 2's here, guys. I can't wait for you to listen to all of it. See you next Tuesday.